Hello, my fellow readers. I Dark Symphony 777 with not so much a review, but part 2 of my review of Fallen Kingdom. This is, as always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comments below on your thoughts on the story, and finally, my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of the world, so please respect that. I'm doing part 2. I mentioned in my first part of Fallen Kingdom that I was going to be doing a separate video talking about a specific part of the story, and that is the 7 Stars organization. Now, I'm of the idea that any idea can theoretically work. It can work. Any idea can work, but 7 Stars on a conceptual level has to be one of the worst executed ideas / plot points I have ever seen in any story I have ever read. It's that bad. So the idea of a clandestine evil organization that is run by Mario and Luigi's father sounds like, hey, that's actually a really cool idea. The problem is once you actually start applying logic to the damn thing. So when it comes to this specific review, I'm not going to be talking about any real thing besides 7 Stars, as well as how they impact the story and how they operate in the context of the story. So where do we begin with this? Well, why not I show you a clip of the introduction of one of my favorite villains in any media.
Oh, Pongo, it's her. It's that devil woman.
Oh, must be Cruella, your dearly devoted old schoolmate, Cruella de Vil. That's it.
Cruella de Vil, Cruella de Vil. If she doesn't scare you, no evil thing will.
Now, I bet you're wondering, why did I show that specific cutscene? Well, in order to establish exactly what is wrong with 7 Stars as an organization or as a plotline, I needed to show this specific scene. It could, and really, any scene could have been done because villain introductions. Now, in order to make a good villain, one of the first things you need to do is establish an introduction for them. First impressions are important, I say, and when it comes to a villain, no, you need to set the stage for them. How they work, how they operate, what kind of villain they are, what their plan is, what their motivation is, everything you need to immediately tell the author about when it comes to a group is important for this introduction. The problem is, 7 Stars doesn't really have the best track record. Specifically for one very specific character. Now, I will say there is actually 3 introductions to 7 Stars as a group. The first one is all the way at the end of chapter 23, the Maestro. Now, you won't actually realize this is actually the introduction to 7 Stars because chapter 23 also introduces Ludwig von Koopa as the supposed main villain of the group. So having 7 Stars kind of be introduced along with him, albeit at a more inauspicious way, is actually really clever. So what is 7 Stars' role in this chapter? Basically, Ludwig kind of bigs them up as an organization that was shrouded in secrecy. So much, in fact, that he was sure the Koopa Empire's intelligence network knew very little of it. It was a criminal organization and arms-dealing group that had his fingers in nearly every shady operation in the world. Groups like the Pinata Mafia and the Robo Gang were partially owned by 7 Stars. People called them the shadow government of the underworld, a group that few knew about and fewer dared to speak of. It had taken years and over 1 billion coins to form this partnership. Every inch of it was worth it. Thanks to them, he had under-the-radar access to rare materials even his father would have trouble getting his claws on. In essence, that lays the framework for 7 Stars as a concept at this point in time. At this point in time, we don't know that they're supposed to be the endgame villains of the story. In essence, this just paints him as something of a third-party intermediary between so that Ludwig can get better gear and gear up to wage war against the other Koopalings. And so we have this this royal yellow Match Cooper named Krazina Goldenwand, who basically is there to act as an intermediary between the higher ups of Seven Stars and Ludwig. Ludwig asked her, I want this technology. She brings a broken Shroob UFO. What is a Shroob? This is a Shroob. Pretty ugly thing, I say. That is what's needed for the introduction of this group at this time. Everything needs to be done with purpose on how to set everything up. That's the reason why I showed the opening introduction for Cruella. She never even actually showed up. And you can tell immediately in that scene that she's dangerous. She comes off as something wicked, as someone very cruel. Cruella is a play on cruel. And that's without her even appearing. I will leave a link to that video in the description in case you ever want to see it to show how well done Cruella's introduction, the full video that is done. She's a really great villain in my opinion. But moving on, we next have the second in command named Skulls Fortescue. Now, I will say that when it comes to Skull specifically, he is actually the only legitimately good part of Seven Stars as an idea. I'll talk about that in a second because I need to go over his introduction. So, how is Skulls introduced into the story? Well, Skulls is actually introduced in chapter 28. This is about the time that Luigi met up with Yoshi and Fireflower. Fireflower is basically like a revolutionary group that's kind of working to free the Mushroom World from Bowser's tyranny. And Luigi met him. They decided Luigi wanted to go out and celebrate to kind of catch up with Yoshi. Yoshi didn't decline, mainly because he's planning on this huge raid against Roy. Basically, at this time, Luigi decided we need to at least take out Roy because Roy is a more immediate threat than Bowser. And so Luigi goes to this random bar. The bartender sees him. He acts in all that Luigi is there and alive. Because I also at this time, not really a lot of people know that Luigi is alive. Everyone still assumes that he's been dead for 20 years. Then out comes this random Koopa. Think about this. This random Koopa in a very expensive white-looking suit and a white fedora with a purple band. That is Skulls. And the introduction to him is actually as inauspicious as Seven Stars or introduction as a whole. You can see the entire introduction right here. It's just Skulls and Luigi kind of talk to each other for like a couple sentences, and then Skulls leaves. And you're thinking, it's not that bad. It doesn't really paint Skulls as anything. But looks can be deceiving. There are two things you need to know that raise red flags in this specific part. Number one is Skulls' design. Luigi himself actually brings attention to Skulls' design in this scene. It's right here, near the end. Who was this Koopa anyway? He was too well dressed to be someone trying to scratch out a life in the ruins of New Donk, but he didn't seem to be a member of Fireflower either. At this point in time, 20 years in the future, Bowser moved his base of operations from the Koopa Kingdom to the ruins of New Donk City. So they're in the ruins of New Donk City within the shadow of of Bowser's massive citadel. And then there's just random Koopa in pristine white clothing just showing up out of nowhere and talking to Luigi. It would definitely ring a red flag to your mind. What also is a red flag in this context is the fact of Skulls' attitude towards Luigi. Not so much, general talking with him, because Skulls comes off as very polite in the story, but more how Skulls reacts to Luigi being alive. Specifically, remember, at this point in the story, everyone who meets Luigi is either completely pissing themselves because, holy shit, he's alive, in awe because, oh my god, he's alive, he can save us, or just completely flabbergasted that, holy shit, he actually survived that. The only exceptions to this up to Skulls has been Wario and Waluigi, and that was actually explained in story that Wario and Waluigi kind of knew the Mario Brothers enough, and they didn't really see Luigi's body, so it's like Luigi probably survived that. So it's like they didn't really see too much of a big deal that Luigi might have survived. It's like, Mario's dead, kind of sad. What about Luigi? Yeah, he might be alive, but yeah, he didn't do anything. So there's that. So when you have this random Koopa who's never met Luigi before, because this story takes under the context that every single Mario game is canon. Skull's meeting Luigi after Luigi's been dead for 20 years, and he reacts so nonchalantly to the whole deal, it kind of draws a red flag as well, because why was he reacting so nonchalantly to the whole thing? He never really met Luigi before, so why is he acting so calm to the whole thing? Well, that's because in chapter 35 of the story, Skulls is reintroduced as a member of Seven Stars organization. At this point in the story, Luigi's apprentice Cobalt, and with the help of Captain Strike, goes and raids the Stone Shell prison, which is this massive hidden prison created by Bowser to house all of Mario's partners that he's kept in line for years. Basically, Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, all of Mario's partners from the Paper Mario games. Probably not Prince Peasley. He's joined by Peasley and K. Rool at this point in time, and basically a bunch of other people, with the exception of Koops. Koops working for Lemmy at this time. They stage a breakout. They get everyone. Cobalt gets to reunite with his dad, the Yoshi from Thousand Year Door. They make a buzz line. The front door is open. There's a white light surrounding it. And who can walk out of the light but Skulls Fortescue? Hello there, my friends. My name is Skulls Fortescue. I'm afraid you can't go no further. Of course, at this point in time, they don't know who Skulls is. They just laugh at the guy. It's like, one guy against like 20 something. You ain't gonna take us. Cue Skulls going, alright, bet. Covers one of his eyes, his left eye, with his hand. He lifts it away. The eye is glowing, and now he can do telekinesis, and he basically just promptly curb stomps everyone. He's like, I will give you one last warning. Why don't you go back to those cells right now? You'd be doing me a favor. You don't have to get involved with this. I know it sounds cowardly, but trust me, you will thank me for giving you this chance. Cue them trying to fight him off. He guards beats them. They have to run because they can't hurt him anymore, or even try. And what does Skulls do? He just politely follows along, just hunting them down slowly, patiently. And it takes Admiral Bobbery, sacrificing himself just to stall the guy and get away. And even then, they only get away because there was a ship there that Skulls actually apparently didn't account for. And even then, at the end of the story, what does he do? He just kills Bobbery. Just kills Bobbery. This chapter right here is how to do a villain introduction really well. The whole framing of it all, the white light, the striking design, the fact that he comes off threatening as a villain. Well, let's not forget the fact that in order for them to escape, he threw like a huge part of the prison at them with his telekinesis, so he's really strong. And how everything is framed around Skulls is legitimately effective in establishing him as an actual threat. It establishes him as someone you can't mess with, that they need to tread lightly, and this carries on across the entire story. Skulls himself is more or less an anarchist. He doesn't really have a motive for doing the things that he's doing in the story, besides wanting to hurt people. That's more or less Skulls' MO. He doesn't really care what the war between Ludwig and Bowser is about. He doesn't really care that much about Antonio's grand plan. He just wants to hurt as many people as he can, as long as he wants. And that's actually very effective between the sort of villain protagonist in Junior, the more sympathetic villain in Ludwig, and now you got like this random third-party wild card who just wants to just kill people. He doesn't care. He don't give a shit. And that is carried out throughout the entire story. And even till Skulls' death in chapter 61, where he basically has to fight all the Koopalings at once. And even then, his death, instead of, a traditional death, the Koopalings realize they can't get through his defenses because now he has 3 eyes and they have like a humongous barrier, like they can't really get through him. What happens? Cammy shows up, casts a massive null barrier around the arena that they're on, because at this point they're on like a gigantic spaceship, and the Koopalings' main job is they're trying to distract Bowser and everyone from getting to make sure they get to Rosalina. Yeah, spoiler alert, Rosalina's here, and she's part of the bad guys. And basically, Cammy just, no magic for everyone, and so they just basically swarm Skulls, and even then, Skulls like, this is truly the fight of my life, Koopalings. You are truly, really of my respect, but you'll never finish me. I am Skulls for the school, and I will end you now. And even then, he goes down swinging. He goes down exactly how a character of his style, like his vibe, would go down. He lost his magic, but he's like, nah, I still got enough magic to stab his own bone through his skin and turn it into a promptu sword. And then they basically just they just blew him up with fire and their own magic. It's really cool. It's a really cool way of finishing him off. And I really like Skulls. The same can't be said about Antonio. Oh, okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Where to begin with Antonio as a villain? Now, with this in mind, let's take a look at the leader of 7 Stars' introduction, Antonio. Now, I will say, when it comes to an introduction, not only do you have to show how the villain looks, like not how the villain acts, but also how the villain looks. Let's go back to Cruella de Vil as an example. Look at that face. Look at that design. Such a striking, intimidating design. Think back to the video I showed earlier. That is Cruella de Vil's introduction scene, but I actually never got to the part where she actually showed up. She busted the door, demanding where the puppies are. It's a really well executed scene, and I only showed the part before she showed up specifically to showcase how well effective an introduction can be. Not only that, but so what does that have to do with this? Well, here is the issue with Antonio. Most, if not all, of the issues with 7 Stars just come from this guy. It's just, let's start off with his design. You're thinking, okay, he's the father of Mario and Luigi. You're thinking, okay, he's probably gonna have like a pretty interesting design, look like some kind of like rugged guy, maybe like somewhat blue collar, but also kind of harrowed, worn out from probably like years of planning. What the story describes, you can see it right here near the top of this chapter, right of the page, is Orange Luigi with a trench coat. Now, I like orange as much as the next guy, but really, you really decided, instead of going for like an interesting design, you just take Luigi, recolor him, and give him like some gray hairs around his hair, and then you call that a design. It's not really a good design. it undermines a lot of the serious actions that you're trying to convey as a villain. Skulls has an interesting design with the pure white suit and fedora with the purple stripe. It's very striking. It fits. It more fits his character than the main villains just looking like Luigi. It doesn't work. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Then we get to the whole circumstances behind this. Skull's basically screwed the pooch, letting Cobalt and everyone go. So he goes to report to Antonio to basically tell him, it's like, yeah, I kind of goofed up, they got away. And Antonio's like, where is it? Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's been a long road, Skull's Force Fuel. But yes, the Koopa Empire, Luigi's Resistance, Fire Flower, the Neo Empire, all these forces are about to collide. And when they do, it will, at long last, be silent. Now you're thinking, okay, that actually sounds pretty intimidating. However, one, again, it's undermined by the fact that he just looks like Orange Luigi. One. And two, once not only do you read the rest of this chapter, but also when you take into account the hindsight of reading the entire story, his whole plan makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no solid sense at all. So let's start with the obvious thing. Antonio actually mentions, tell me, Skulls, have you heard of the Star Children? Yes, mentioned them before, Antonio. 7 children with destinies and power that set them above all others. Children who, as adults, would determine the course of the world. In time, they would pass their legacy to others. Bowser to his children, Luigi to this blue Yoshi, of course. My beautiful red star, i.e. is referring to Mario, who at this point, he actually has like locked up in like stasis and trying to brainwash him. Pass his legacy to all the friends and companions he made throughout his eventful life. This world is controlled by extraordinary people, Skulls. And when extraordinary people come to blows, the entire world shakes. You think, oh, that sounds cool. And then you realize, wait a minute. One of the people Skulls was trying to prevent from escaping the prison was Donkey Kong, who's a Star Child. Now, you don't know. Now, if you don't know what the Star Children is, it's a very ambiguous term used in the second Yoshi's Island game to refer to a group of 7 individuals with great power. They are Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, Wario, Donkey Kong, and Yoshi. These are the 7 Star Children. So it makes legitimately no sense for Skull when it seems at this point in time Antonio's plan involves the Star Children in some way, and Skulls is trying to prevent a Star Child from escaping. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, that makes perfect sense. Let me explain. Skull's entire plan, not Skull's, Antonio's entire plan completely revolves around all the Star Children being in the same place at the same time for his plan in order to work. So it is kind of contradictory that the right-hand man is doing this whole song and dance to try and prevent one of the Star Children, Donkey Kong, from leaving the prison. So, how does this not make sense? Well, you can make the argument that Skull specifically went to the prison on his own without Antonio's involvement. That's how this chapter at least makes a little bit of sense. It's kind of implied that that Skulls did kind of go on his own. So you can make an argument for that. However, what you can't make an argument for is the simple fact that it contradicts Antonio's plan. And this is something that is really paramount to why this entire storyline with 7 stars does not work. It's these contradictions that as you read along, as you continue through the story from this point on, you realize so much of it is completely backfired by the author's inane decision to make every single game canon. Particularly in this case, in this part of the chapter, the Yoshi's Island DS, which introduces the Star Children. Despite the fact the Star Children, I don't know if Yoshi's Island DS is canon or not. I know that the first Yoshi's Island game is canon. I don't know about Yoshi's Island DS. But as the story goes on, more and more issues kind of rise around, particularly Antonio's plan. So first off, his plan requires such a large number of specific actions to take. Now, these types of villains do exist. Any sort of like chess master, like the Riddler or something like that, that plans other people's moves, they do exist. Here's the issue between them and Antonio. One, they tend to be more broad in what they expect to action. So, for instance, villain Bob, let's just say Bob, has a plan. And in order for the plan to go off, certain people need to perform X, Y, and Z actions. However, they tend to be very broad, and that they don't really, unless they know the character that well, they tend to go like, okay, any character does X over for Y, and if need be, him, Bob, does Z to manipulate X into doing Y. It's basically a sort of manipulative tactic. These types of characters need to manipulate everyone around them to ensure certain values of their plan go off. Here's the issue with Antonio. The first issue with Antonio's plan. His entire plan needed to work due to Bowser acting specifically a certain way to his wife Lavaria's death. Antonio and Skulls murdered Lavaria. It was more Antonio. Skulls basically just held her in place so Antonio can actually kill her. But they both did it. And he was expecting Bowser to basically do what Bowser's father did decades ago and murder everyone. Except for the fact that Bowser didn't. And so later in the story, we find out that instead of trying to manipulate the situation to try and move Bowser to waging war against the Mushroom Kingdom and starting this entire plan, they wait essentially 7 to 8 years while they're just watching Bowser pine after Peach. I'm sorry, your entire plan just completely falls apart once you realize that. Why aren't you manipulating Bowser? Why aren't you manipulating Bowser? Why aren't you kind of doing all this to try and get Bowser into like the mindset to do a proper invasion? It doesn't make any sense. And then do precisely when you kill her, he acts nothing like you want him to act, and you just sit there twiddling your thumbs, doing nothing. It just doesn't. I don't know. And even then, we have a situation where throughout the entire story, despite the fact the story is kind of implied to, well, 7 Stars as an organization to be implied to specialize in intelligence gathering, Antonio's entire plan is so fucking stupid. So not only does Antonio's plan require specifically everyone to act, like specific people to act a specific way when they don't even know the characters enough. This is like it's one thing like, okay, he knows how Mario or Luigi's gonna act. Okay, he probably knows them. No, Mario, it's Antonio doesn't know how Mario and Luigi act because he's watched them from afar. He's watched everyone from afar. Seven Stars has maintained a intellectual grip on the mushroom world for nigh on 50, 60 years. And during that time, he is revealed to have to watch a lot of stuff happen. This is issue number 2. His plan involves getting all the Star Children in one location at one time, but then he doesn't take into account that Luigi was alive. And this is like, you're thinking, wait a minute, of course Luigi's alive. Here's the thing. The Koopa Kingdom basically believes that Luigi's dead. However, that's consistent with the Koopa Kingdom, or more specifically, Bowser's characterization and treatment towards Luigi in canon. Luigi's like, Bowser would go, Mario, green stash, and just completely just ignore Luigi. That's something that's been consistent with Bowser's treatment of the Mario Brothers for a long time. He sees Mario as the worthy opponent, and Luigi's kind of just exists. So it makes sense that Bowser, especially since in the context of the story, Luigi's more or less kept alive by the fact Boom Boom, who's in charge of Toad Town, is just kind of a lazy bum. He's just like, just doesn't really care to tell anyone about Luigi. It makes sense that they wouldn't know that Luigi is alive for 20 years. It's another thing when you have an entire organization who has a specialty in information gathering, completely not know that Luigi is alive for 20 years. Now, you may be wondering, well, the same thing happens with Kammy Koopa throughout the entire, to like the latter half of the story. It's revealed that she is alive. There are 3 things that separate Kammy from Luigi. 1, Kammy only pretends to die for 2 years. This is because she realizes that Bowser's wife's death was fabricated and she's trying to discover the truth of what happened, which bleeds into the second reason. Kammy is deliberately trying not to be found. Kammy knows that whoever killed Laveria has eyes everywhere, so she went out of her way to hide the fact that she faked her death until she gets enough evidence to give to Bowser. This gives her time to find where the remnants of the Dark Star are, so that way she can absorb it, give Bowser more or less steroids to basically boost up his strength to like when he was in the prime, just enough for the final battle. And finally, Kammy specifically ran away. No one even knew that Kammy was alive. No one. Not the Koopalings, not Bowser, not Seven Stars, not Luigi, not anyone. Nobody knew that Kammy was alive until over halfway through the story when it's like, oh yeah, she's alive. She just faked her death just to do all this stuff and investigate. Luigi was in Toad Town for 20 years. Never bothered to hide the fact that he's alive because during that 20 years, he was completely depressed and still mourning over Mario's death. He never bothered to hide it. Everyone in the town knew that he was alive. And he was alive and he was just wandering around Mushroom Kingdom, Toad Town, and to his house for 20 years. And Seven Stars didn't bother to check his house because it turns out the reason they got Mario, they not only have Mario, but they also have Peach, is Antonio gets Skull to get to Mario before the bullet bills actually hit him, grabs him, and then leaves. Skull did not mention Luigi was alive because, after literally right before Mario would have gotten blown up, the bullet he saved Luigi. And Luigi, guess what? Ran to his house. The story makes it very clear right here. Louis leaped off the Toad House roof, heading to the direction away from the castle. He's just running. So now you have a bad guy who grabs Mario, doesn't bother, and a villainous group who doesn't bother to check if Luigi is even alive or dead. That just doesn't make sense. You just and we're not even done with this yet. Because then we have the contradicting issues with Antonio's character. So Antonio's entire character, his plan and his his backstory is so completely shit. Antonio's backstory is that he was friends with Morton Koopa. One day, Morton's father died, so Morton kind of had to step up and take the throne. And eventually the Koopa Kingdom was thriving and was friends with the Mushroom Kingdom. However, a famine happened. A famine happened that completely destroyed all the crops of the Koopa Kingdom. No one knows what happened with the crops. So Morton, in the act of desperation to keep his people alive, invaded the Mushroom Kingdom to try and get his hands on the resources for his people, and he kind of took it too far and subjugated them and all that, which led to the Koopa War that was mentioned throughout the story. Somewhere along the way during the war, Antonio meets this lady. I think Antonio mentions her name all of once, but apparently they fell in love, they got married, and the lady gave birth to Mario and Luigi. During a battle between Antonio and Morton, they're just casually fighting. The fight killed the wife. And even in story, in universe of the story, Antonio reveals that he doesn't really know which of them killed her. It's just, I don't know if it was me, I don't know if it was Morton, I don't know if it was just us together. Somehow, she died. Okay, so now you have a pretty sympathetic backstory over why he's doing it. He's basically doing it because he lost his love of his life, over his own, I guess you could say, his own power and, I guess, pride. Especially what happened after this. He just killed Morton full stop, and then goes into hiding specifically to start 7 stars for his big plan. So that's his backstory. You think, okay, it's supposed to paint Antonio as sympathetic. Here's where the contradiction happened. His plan. So his plan is specifically get Bowser to wage war with the Mushroom Kingdom, hope that Mario dies, then go up into space, find the Comet Observatory, hope that Rosalina is so jaded over the war and Mario's death that Antonio gaslights her into doing what is called Operation Starfall. What Operation Starfall is, once Antonio gets all the Star Children together in one place, and this is where it starts to not make sense. He gets Rosalina to come at some time in the 20-year gap. Not through the gap. 20 years after she showed up and he gaslit her, to bring her Comet Observatory over the planet, cast a gigantically powerful spell to uncover the entire planet, with the hopes of getting rid of all magic and all power-ups, even at Rosalina's death. It's like, okay, that's like utopian. That's not that. Oh, and also the spell would also get rid of anyone with any intelligence or anyone with any ambition. Hold on a minute. Yes. First off, there's 2 problems with that. First off, your whole plan revolves around the Star Children being in one place. But then the whole thing that you need to do to fulfill the plan is Rosalina covering the entire planet in a spell. Huh? Did that? So you basically want to have everyone who can threaten you in one place while you cast a spell that can cover the entire planet. That doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And second off, his entire plan revolves around him luckily finding Rosalina and then deciding to wait 20 years to do. Like if there was an explanation of why he had to wait 20 years, fine, I can say, okay, fine, that's you can get away with that. But there's no explanation of why he had to wait 20 years for Rosalina to show up and do it. It doesn't make it's a massive plot hole because that you could have just went Rosalina kill him now. Okay. And just been done away with it. And finally, his plan makes no sense. Like his whole thing is like he wants a world without where everyone is equal. Where everyone is like there's no fighting. There's silence. Problem is, it's one thing to go, I'm going to get rid of all magic and power-ups. Okay, that's fine. But his plan wants to kill everyone on the planet with any sort of intelligence and any sort of ambition. First off, that includes him because he's intelligent, he's ambitious, he even met Cat, but he's like too stupid to realize it. He's like, I wonder once the silence happens, maybe I could run a carpenter shop. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. The plan would kill him too. First off, and second off, you're deliberately making a plan that would just kill everyone with the hopes of trying to leave whoever's behind retarded. What? That doesn't make... See, his plan doesn't make any sense. His plan is a shitty utopian revolutionary sort of deal where he just wants everyone to be equal, but it makes no sense once you put any thought into it. His backstory is sympathetic, that acts as that comes off as clashing with his plan. And then it's like, okay, so what does he act like? He probably like acts like a wary guy who just kind of lost hope. No, Antonio just acts like a mustache twirling generic bad guy, just evil for the sake of evil, which contradicts not only his backstory but contradicts his plan. How do you fuck up this badly? His character makes no sense for what he's trying to pull. His character makes no sense for what his backstory showed. His backstory and evil plan contradict each other because they just make no sense when you put them together. Everything about his plan relies so heavily on certain characters doing very specific actions without even trying to manipulate the situation to ensure that reaction goes well, and then does nothing when it backfires on him. There has to be something with Antonio that's at least somewhat good. Well, there's one thing, and that is the final fight at the end of the story. Right here. Between Antonio and Luigi and Cobalt and all their friends. I really do like how they had to, instead of fighting him traditionally, they had to basically everyone had to unite and basically just jump him. Because they realized Antonio's fighting style revolves around him constantly avoiding damage. Basically, his whole fighting style is he just constantly dodges every attack at him, and then he just basically one or two shots them. This is because Antonio is pretty much a glass cannon. So what happens is everyone except for Bowser and Mario, because they're fighting Rosalina in space, decides to, we're basically just gonna keep throwing everything at you until you tire out so that we can actually physically hurt you. Which I admit is actually a really clever way of beating a villain. They realize we can't touch you, we can't, not because they're like shielded up, but because they're so fast that they can't physically hit contact. So just throw hundreds upon hundreds of troops slowly with like at different escalation, different skill sets, specifically get him to react and tire out. And of course, Cammy does like the chief work for that because she actually was the one to wear him out significantly enough that Luigi's actually able to hit him. And then Luigi just basically does the job because Luigi was more tanky than Antonio was even expecting. And so Luigi realizes, oh wait, my dad can't take a punch. I basically just hit him down enough that the final part of their fight before Rosalina's death, there's a little bit more fight after that. It's just Luigi and Antonio is doing this to each other. Not the greatest way to finish a fight. Granted, again, there's a little more when Antonio realizes, holy shit, I've been beaten. And so he kind of just does a desperation attack. That's drawn out. Luigi just jumps down, hits him just 3 more times, and he goes down like a whip. So yeah, that's how Antonio. That's like the only redeeming quality of Antonio is the fight between them. It's like it's at least creative with like having to tire him out instead of defeating him traditionally by beating him down. It's at least creative, and they also like had to put like a million bunch of wards on him just to keep him from doing anything. It's if his character was more consistent, I would be fine with Antonio and how he functions and how he acts. But it's so everything about Antonio in regards to 7 stars is so contradictory within itself. It just turns 7 stars as an organization from like an actual threat to like something incredibly superfluous and it like totally unnecessary in the grand scheme of things because like Ludwig is a much better villain than 7 stars. He's much more fleshed out. He's much more built up, and he actually comes off as a legitimate threat. Skulls is like the only legitimate threat to the story when it comes to 7 stars. Oh, and that's not even getting to the whole deal with Peach and Mario. Like, okay, he somehow gets Peach. Never actually revealed how he gets Peach, just that she's been gone for 20 years. He kidnapped Mario right before he died. He was about to die to brainwash him for 20 years. He brainwashes him for 20 years, and that only lasts an hour. That is honestly pretty funny. That 20 years of brainwashing went down the tube. Oh. Well then, moving on. And Skull's even like questioning. It's like, oh yeah, I told him that it wouldn't, the brainwashing wouldn't work. It's Mario. It's like, okay. It's like you can't even brainwash competently. It's not even, and that's not even getting into what he did with Peach. Because again, going back earlier, his entire plan revolves around getting all the 7 stars together. He knows Bowser was staying in one place. Bowser spent the entire 20 years just kind of in like a depressive state at his Citadel. He knows Ludwig is going to assault the Citadel sooner or later. Ludwig made it very clear. I believe in story that Antonio knows Ludwig is eventually going to attack the Citadel because once he takes over everyone else, he needs to get Bowser out of the way. So why would Antonio go, I'm going to waste my one bargaining chip, Princess Peach, which would draw out Bowser, despite the fact Bowser is staying in one place where the person I gave my technology in the Ways of War is going to end up fighting Bowser by assaulting his Citadel in the first place. Let's just take a battle in the middle of random sea and just stick Peach right there. Genius! Not! It's so illogical Like, why would you had your bargaining chip? All that did was like, oh, make Bowser actually want to fight. They were eventually like, even the climax. Where does the climax take place in? Oh, outside Bowser's Citadel. Bowser did not need to be involved in the story. Peach, like if you want to add Peach, okay, there's different ways of adding Peach, but it's just how it's handled here. It just makes no logical sense. It really just, it's such an illogical way of incorporating Peach that is just pathetic. And again, contradictory to everything Antonio was trying to plan, because wouldn't it make more sense for Antonio to kind of try and wait until, I don't know, the final battle to just shove Peach in the middle to kind of ensure Bowser gets a little closer, you know? Even then, that is contradicted by his plan of getting Rosalina to cover the entire world in an anti-magic thing to just completely delete magic. Like, I don't get it. Okay, so I talked enough about Seven Stars as a concept. I do think Seven Stars has a lot of potential. It's just how they're handled here is such a slapdash way of doing it. It just reeks of the author not wanting to end it with Ludwig, so he just kind of cobbled together another faction to kind of take the final villain vibe. And Seven Stars was it, and he just slapdashed it together. Would I recommend the story? Seven Stars doesn't really get involved until around, where is it? Right now, right here. Seven Stars don't really get fully involved in the story until around chapter 50. They more or less spend every chapter from 23 to this kind of just mildly getting involved, like slowly introducing more details about them, but they don't really fully get involved until near the very end. I think, as it stands, the Seven Star storyline is not really bad enough to ruin the story. It definitely does take an impact in the quality of it, because the entire ending of it is just all seven stars all the way. It doesn't really work. So yeah. So I wouldn't recommend reading the Seven Stars on that unless you really want to. But as a whole, I think Fallen Kingdom is good enough that it kind of works without the Seven Stars, unless you really like them. But I think Fallen Kingdom's good enough as is. Now, what would I change about the story? Well, there's two things you can do. One, just completely cut Seven Stars out altogether, but that would require changing way too much about the story. And honestly, I'm going to contradict myself on this and be a hypocrite. But what I would actually suggest is, if you want to keep Seven Stars in the story, fold them into Fireflower. Fireflower is already a revolutionary group. At the very least, you would just need to get rid of Antonio and Giovanni. Oh yeah, Giovanni's Antonio's brother, and it's kind of like, that's all you need to know about him. He's so irrelevant to the story that I didn't even mention him. Have Skulls be the leader of Seven Stars. Change Fireflower to Seven Stars. Have Yoshi be the figurehead, being manipulated by Skulls to try and do all these more morbid things as the story goes on. And have them be a legitimate wildcard instead of being a utopian group wanting to praise equality. Make them just a pure anarchist group. Yoshi wants to be freedom fighters and take down Bowser and free the Mushroom Kingdom and all the worlds. Skulls basically just wants to harm and kill people. Man, that's basically who he is as a character. So fit right in of him manipulating Yoshi to kind of take these more extreme actions. And then once Yoshi kind of wises up to Skull's interference of trying to manipulate and basically just kill everyone, Skull kicks him out or tries to kill him. Yoshi gets away, teams up with the Mario Brothers, saying that we now have like a third party who's really just disgustingly evil. They don't really have a plan besides, we just want to kill everyone, as many people as possible. And if you want, at the end of the story, you could still have Rosalina come in. You can easily write down that Rosalina took Peach because Peach was too pure. Rosalina took her, basically hid her from the world for so long and wanted to wait until peace and stability came up more and more. But then when she comes back at the end of the story, she sees that war happening, and she becomes so jaded that it's like, I'm just gonna kill everyone. Basically initiate Starfall on her own because like, this is all caused by like magic and destruction, so I'm just gonna wipe out all magic, kind of just get rid of all that. Mario and Luigi and Bowser, because if you do it this way, Mario would have to stay dead. Work together to take down Rosalina. Bowser, of course, would sacrifice himself. And then once Rosalina is defeated, Peach, comes temporarily, gets the Comet Observatory into the ground on land. Decides to talk with Junior. Junior and Peach come to an agreement to separate, bring everything back to normal, and we get the epilogue at the end. So I think that would work better than what we got, because usually Antonio's just a shit villain, like, honestly. And 7 stars is fine on its own, but Antonio's just so bad. Whew. So that has been my second half of the review of Fallen Kingdom. I thank you for putting up with this. I will see you next time, where I will try and do this story, because this is gonna be my next story, because I'm already like halfway through it already. This has been Dark Symphony 707, and cut.